All right, we're live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Pen to Paper. I'm your host, Leah Lindeman, and today I have with me Kaila Desjardins, and she released her debut fantasy romance, Shadow Sword. So, welcome, Kaila. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me. I'm
Yeah,
really excited to do this.
me too. I'm excited to have you on. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about Shadow Sword and then a little bit about you? And then I'll ask you some questions about the book.
Yeah, so Shadow Sword, always one of the dreaded questions of to any author is what's your book about? But um, Shadow Sword is a dual perspective new adult novel. It follows Regan, who is a sellsword. She is a princess, secretly a princess from another country, who basically didn't feel that she could protect people with a sword the way that she wanted to under
Mhm.
that life. So she changed her name and secretly went to a different country. And the other perspective is Dàibhid, who is king of Cynlarin, the country that Regan went to. And his throne is under attack. An invading force wants to take it for themselves. And so he hires sellswords to help him gather information. And one of these sellswords is Regan, who was his best friend as a child, and he does not realize, and she has to make sure that he never does.
Aha, or else.
Or
I
else.
guess we don't get to know the or else part. but-
You could assume, given her parents have no idea that she's actually living as a sellsword. So,
Yes, which
yeah,
is kind of playing into that, well, young person rebellion streak, maybe.
yeah, yeah,
She's doing it for a good cause. I
exactly.
understand.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes, I love that it's very empowering. She kind of just decides to make her own destiny and manifest it. So, because she has a calling to protect
yeah,
people. So if she can't do it
exactly.
as a princess, why not do it the way you want to do it? So,
Exactly, exactly.
yeah.
Um,
And a
and
little bit about you.
yeah, so as well as being an author, I'm also a freelance editor. So basically, my entire day is built around stories, which is a dream come true for me. Um, and I mean, you'd said a fun fact of them, but it's a big part of Shadow Sword for me was I did Celtic studies in university. So that's just kind of
Mhm.
mythology stuff is just kind of built into me as well.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Did you ever think that you were going to use those Celtic studies as like one day a book? Was that in the back of your head when you were taking the studies? Or you're like,
It
oh,
was a little bit.
good.
It was
Okay.
a little bit. I started taking it, like the first course I took for it was Irish language class.
Nice. Yeah.
And that one I didn't think was gonna go anywhere other than just like that's really fun to learn that as a language.
Hmm.
And then I went more into the program, and one of them was early Celtic literature.
Okay.
And Irish was a big part of it, Irish mythology. And I'm like, oh, I could use this. That's like part of where I got the
Yeah.
idea for Regan, like was in that class. So I figured that I might be able to use it for something.
Okay. And I'm guessing you are Irish or have Irish roots?
I do have Irish roots,
Okay.
a few generations back. So like it's not immediate,
Okay.
but yeah, I know I do have some, um, and I was always interested in that and everything and learning more about that. So
Yeah.
they definitely fed into each other.
Yes. It's very rare that I've come across a book that has Celtic mythology or like, even the names are Celtic. So
Mhm.
I'm currently reading your book right now. I thought I was going to be done a while ago, but life just
Life
took
happens.
its plans. And when I get to the end of the day, I'm so exhausted. I'm just like, I'm reading.
I understand.
Push through. But no, it's been very enjoyable so far. I
Well,
think
thank you.
I'm a little bit more than halfway, so
Yeah.
hopefully I can finish it by the end of this week. That's the
Mm,
plan. Because I have so many other books to read, but I'm really enjoying yours, and,
thank
it's
you.
definitely unlike anything I've ever read, and I think a lot of that has to do with the Celtic that mixture that you put all
Mm,
together, which is very intriguing.
thank
So,
you.
um, is Celtic mythology your favorite mythology?
I'd say like it's probably tied with Norse,
Okay.
but
Yes.
Celtic definitely I adore it. They both Celtic mythology and Norse mythology kind of have a very similar vibe to them. I find like the storytelling is very similar. The a lot like some of the content is similar. Like I guess it's that vibe I enjoy.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's something that I did want with this one as well. Was there are definitely things with Celtic mythology, but I find that a lot of it also incorporates like folklore.
Yeah.
So like more the fairies, more the selkies, more that sort of stuff, which I like adore that stuff.
Yes.
But I don't find there's as much that's actually based on like the Irish gods.
Okay. Yeah,
Which
that's true
which
because
the stuff is inspired by, right? So it's
yeah.
I wanted that specifically.
Okay, so are you saying the characters David and Regan are inspired by Irish gods? I didn't even
Yeah.
know there were Irish gods.
Yeah, no, and that's something else that, like, when I was in that program, it
Yeah,
just kind of became evident to me that, like, just a lot of Irish stuff isn't as mainstream. Like, I know that there are pockets where it definitely is mainstream, but, like, I find, like, in the circles that I'm typically in, they're not as mainstream.
yeah.
But yeah, my as I call them, my core 7 characters,
Okay.
are all based on different Irish gods,
Huh.
to one extent or another. Some of them are very far removed, but have, like, just a kernel of something, but
Okay.
yeah.
And so for David and Regan, what Irish gods are they based on?
So Regan is based on Morrigan, who
Okay.
is an Irish death and war goddess. She also has some aspects of like fertility and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm always drawn to goddesses like that. So
Okay.
like she was immediately when I learned about her in class, like, oh, I need her as a character.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, so that's who she's based on, and David is based on the Dagda, who is the king of the Irish gods.
Okay.
So he's god of druidry, of wisdom, um,
Yeah, I
yes,
can see that
most
playing his character for sure.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So did them being based on Irish gods kind of help you form, like, the story itself? Like, how did you get the concept for the story of Shadow Sword?
Yeah, they didn't quite help me figure out the story itself a whole lot. It did
Okay.
in that I knew who the antagonist was gonna be very early on,
Okay.
because Baylor is a big, antagonist in Irish mythology, so, like, okay, I got that down.
Yeah, yeah.
But otherwise, they basically just influenced personality more than anything else.
That makes sense, yeah.
Um, and yet, like, a lot of my thoughts for books, this one, other ones like that I haven't written yet, all that, um, really do stem from the characters themselves. So
Mhm.
as soon as I had like Regan was my first concept for any character in it.
Okay.
And I actually her character was initially two separate characters for two
Oh,
separate books.
okay.
Where it was one based on Morrigan and one based on the youngest princess of the 12 dancing princesses. And they were separate characters.
Okay.
And then I thought one day, well, what if they're the same person? So like that
That's
kind of
cool.
sprung her. So then I ended up having that duality of like, you know, the war goddess with the youngest princess and kind of built that.
Mhm.
And then I knew I wanted like a crew around her. So Maya came in, Lou came in, Bryn came in, all those side characters. And then it just kind of kept growing in scale of, okay, well, why are they together? What are they doing?
Yes, yeah.
So David was actually, I knew I wanted that sort of character in it,
Mhm.
but he was one of the last characters I came up with. He was being stubborn. I did not know. I did not know anything about him other than I wanted someone based on the Dagda, and he was going to be Regan's love interest. That's all I had.
Interesting.
Yeah,
So what was, like, the thing that finally drew him out, that he finally revealed himself to you?
that's a great question. I remember the moment it happened. I do not remember what sparked it, but
Okay.
it was just a lot of. I had everyone else, so
Yeah.
I think I was just like I don't know, like I was digging so deep to figure it out, and then I finally pictured him.
Oh,
And I came up with initially his name was just David, spelled the more traditional English way.
yeah.
And so like I started kind of having that idea. And when I wrote him into the first draft, initially it was just going to be Regan's perspective.
Okay.
And then I got not very far into the book and I realized I don't know what he wants. So like, let me figure that out. And I wrote a journal entry for him. That's what I like to do when I don't know what a character wants is I just info dump stream of consciousness a character's thoughts onto a page. It's like, it can be as messy as I want. It doesn't have to make any sense as long as it's in character. And then I realized how anxious he was. Like, oh, here's more of his character. I see. But
that is so gold. I've heard a lot of authors, or writers, they're just trying to get started writing. I'm part of a writers group in my local area, and you just mentioned starting that, like, just do stream of consciousness for 15 minutes a day and see. And for some of them, it's really been helping them. But I've never heard that said for a character. That's really cool. I think that could help a lot of people maybe who are stuck on that character.
Yeah. No, I found it really helpful with a few characters because before I wrote Shadow Sword, I wrote a book that I tried to query.
Okay.
And for that book, there was a chunk of time at the start that I didn't know what was happening. So I wrote journal entries for each day from both characters' perspectives. And it was interesting because his ended up being bullet points. I'm like, oh yeah, that feels like how he would write. So like it helps you figure out what they're thinking, what they're doing, their personality a little bit. It's super helpful, I find.
That's very, very cool. I'm going to start offering that advice to people.
Please do.
I think that if it's helpful. So first, writer's advice in this section, guys, in this video, try that. Stream of consciousness writing. Very cool. So let's go back to Regan or Morrigan. She's a princess, but she's also a sellsword. And you said that you were anticipating her being two different characters, but you merged her. How did you balance that, like the secrecy and also just making her, I guess not making her too unrelatable? Like, how did you how was it crafting her character? Was it difficult, or did you find like that actually helped those two opposites, that duality helped you?
Her character I find that she fluctuates because like there are a lot of things that the way that she thinks is how I think.
Okay.
In certain situations. So those moments were very like, okay, like I'm going to allow myself to just like, this is what I do in this moment. I'm going to let myself do that.
Yeah.
And one of the things that and this comes up at one point in the book, just I held on to for the duality of like with the secrecy and figuring that out. A lot of people like, when you're writing books and you're writing a character's fear, like there's kind of there's not necessarily a logic to it, but there is a logic to it to present it. And one thing that I approached Regan's fear of being discovered with a more illogical sort of mind of how fears often work for us in real life. We sometimes know that they make precisely no sense, or that maybe they had a place before, but do they have a place now? But we're too afraid to figure out or to test that theory if they're actually still valid or not, right?
Yeah.
So I took that kind of approach of I've had fears like that. I've worried that about illogical things, knowing that I don't need to be worried about them at all.
Yeah.
And I applied that to her. So I think through that as well, like that helped me make her relatable as well, of just like the way that she is scared of being discovered and the passion she has of like, but I really want to do this thing.
Yes.
Like they war with each other because that's how like I've warred with myself on things, right? And how I've seen other people war with things. And so yeah, that was kind of I made sure that the fear was kind of illogical so that it would be relatable, I guess.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And you said that for David, when you were figuring him out, that you realized he was anxious. So he has his own set of fears. Would you say that his fears are more logical, or do they tend to be in the more illogical sense with Regan?
I think they might be more logical, only that in that like the scale is so much different, right? Because his fear is letting his people down, and he is a king. He has the right to be scared of that happening, right?
For sure.
So I think for him, it's not so much that the fear is illogical, it's he has to examine how he approaches it, right? Because like I think a good leader should be concerned about whether or not their decisions are impacting their people in a good way or a negative way.
Yeah.
So like I definitely think that his fear is justifiable and necessary to a degree, but it's how do you still make decisions within this sphere that is okay to have, but
Yeah,
that shouldn't control you and shouldn't, you know, make your decisions too rash or too like that. You have to make good decisions from it still, right? So how do you do that?
for sure, for
Yeah.
sure. No, that's great. Um, Now, for what I want to know next is you have a theme running through your book
Mm,
that is about protecting others at great cost.
mm.
So, what kind of drew you to this theme? Were you culling from your own life, or experiences you've gone through, or maybe you've seen in other people around you?
To be quite honest, I didn't purposefully put that theme in.
Oh, okay.
That's something I find with my writing is that I'll go back and look like, oh, I see, like I put that in there, or someone else would point it out to me.
Yeah.
So that one again, like my writing is so character driven. Like it just,
Okay.
I think that was one that in part just made sense for Regan to have that extreme, like David does as well, but that's partially like a job he was born into.
That's right.
But for Regan, like she makes this choice.
Yes.
So I think a big part of it was just her character and of the coming at it from the, if you have a passion for doing something, then like go after it, figure out a way to do it. And
Yeah.
for her, it's protecting people. Um, but then there is also, I guess, I probably put some things subconsciously from like things going on in the world of something that I did put to an extent in this one that I want to put into an extent more in the sequel that I'm currently working on.
Okay.
Um, is like there are terrible things happening and everything, and you want to do your part however you can.
Hmm.
So for Regan, and she acknowledges it, I think, to an extent in this book, is she knows that royalty can protect people in different ways.
Hmm.
So, like it can be through policy, it can be through whatever, but it's kind of finding, if you want to help people, find the way that you are able to, and in a way that you feel confident in, not necessarily confident in doing, but like it's when you find a way that you're able to, then like lean into that way.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, and for her, it's not by wearing a crown; it's by being out there with a sword.
Hmm.
So whether that ends up being like, yes, you can go out on the ground and do things, or like maybe you are able to do things more from the background, but you're still doing something. Like I think that's probably more where I was approaching it, and more where I think I'm exploring it a little bit more in the sequel, especially with some of the side characters.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that was kind of, I think, the how that ties into that theme, I guess, is the like, if you want to help people, then find the way that you are able to help.
Yes. Yeah, I love that you mentioned that because when you were giving the blurb and like sharing how, there's enemy forces wanting to take his throne, I was thinking like, oh, it's true. There's a lot of upheaval in today's world. Just the way you were wording it
Mm,
made me think, oh, perhaps she is, taking our modern experiences and seeing what's going on,
mm,
and kind of merging it into this story. And I love that you mentioned, yeah, everybody is different, everybody has a different calling
mm,
to fulfill their purpose the way that they were meant to fulfill it. For some people, as you said, background, for some people it's on the ground with the sword.
mm,
So yeah, that's it's a lovely sentiment and theme, even though maybe you didn't necessarily mean to put this theme in.
mm.
It just shows, I guess, the humanity and timelessness of the story, and that
Yeah.
you can see those things in it, and people can read that, and then maybe be inspired by Regan's or David's stories, like personal stories, and how they're trying to better their world for good in
Mhm.
their own spheres that they're put in, or that they choose to put themselves into.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, there are definitely things that, and this happened with the other previous book that I wrote as well, of I didn't mean for it to be timely.
Well, I mean, there's that saying, there's nothing new under the sun. So we all
Yeah,
see things that affect us, and somehow that, I guess, gets into our writing,
yeah.
and kind of gets in different ways. So that's really neat. Yeah, yeah. So we talked about characters. Let's talk about the world a little bit, because it is a fantasy and romance, which we can get to after. So how did you shape the fantasy part? Like, again, did you use a lot of Celtic mythology to shape that world, or how did you go about building it?
Yeah, so I knew that because half of Regan's story is Irish inspired and half of it is German fairy tale inspired,
Mhm.
I knew that I wanted the two primary countries that are mentioned that are involved to be based on Ireland and Germany to an extent.
Okay.
Very loose in a lot of regards, because it's a mix of those real places and just what I imagine, that sort of world in different time periods would be like, right?
Mhm.
So Conlaran, based on Ireland and to some extent Scotland as well. The castle in Conlaran is very loosely based on Edinburgh Castle.
Oh, wonderful.
So before I started writing the first draft, a few years before, I went to Ireland and Scotland for the first time.
Okay.
So there were a lot of scenic sort of, like the hills and the like
Mhm.
that sort of thing, right? That heavily influenced how I picture it.
Okay.
And then for Fenvald, where Regan is from, um, that one because that part of her life is based on 12 Dancing Princesses, and like, well, I want it to feel fairy tale esque, right?
Mhm.
So um, that isn't described a whole lot in Shadow Sword, but it still has the like the medieval village and the like castle in the mountains and like
Yeah.
um, so that one is more the picturesque images coming out of Germany of the small towns and the castles and
Yeah.
all that was just I want to infuse that. Um, and then because Shadow Sword has no magic in it, um, it was just like I grounded it more, I guess, in those sort of real. Like I didn't have to think about any of the other implications that come with a magic system for
Yeah.
what the world would be like.
Yeah.
Which ended up, I guess, kind of making it easier in a way where I didn't have to just think like, what's this country in and of itself like? Um, yeah, so it influenced by those two countries for sure.
Very neat. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
And, your plotting, I could tell from reading it, it's very character driven as well. I mean, you do have some high stakes in the background,
Yeah.
right? But, yeah, it's very character driven, and a lot of it comes out through character dialogue, and even the high stakes is
Mhm.
based on what the characters are going through. So how did you again, did you kind of decide this is what you were going to do, or did it just come naturally because you loved your characters so much and you put so much time, crafting them?
I think just how I tend to write in general centers character relationships
Yeah.
with children and with themselves. Um, Over basically anything else. And a lot of my favorite books are the same.
Okay.
Where there are definitely high stakes happening and like there are definitely like other people are also in jeopardy and right, but like the
Yeah.
story is more focused on a group of people experiencing those high stakes.
Hmm.
Um, so I think that just like I didn't set out for that to be how the plot worked, but it
Yeah.
is I don't know, like I even when I'm reading a book that is more plot driven, if I can't connect to the characters, then I don't care about the plot.
Yeah. That's right.
So I think they just for me end up becoming central and like I said as well, like they're what I came up with first.
Yes.
And then the plot built around them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that just kind of naturally ended up being the case.
Yeah. I
Mm.
think it's probably the most character driven fantasy book I've read, I
Oh
think.
wow. Okay.
So far. So
Mm,
it might be a perfect segue for, maybe other genre readers who
mm,
prefer, like more low key character driven stories. And they're like, oh,
mhm.
I'd like to try fantasy. Then this would be the perfect book for them to read, I think.
I do. I've had a few people say that they're daunted by fantasy. I'm like, this is just
Now, this is just
like
characters.
yeah, it's fantasy because
Yeah.
it's a world that isn't ours. That's
Yes.
basically the only reason it's a fantasy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's in some ways almost reads as like a medieval historical sort of book in different ways, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Um, because there's no magic, there's no creatures, it's just people.
That's right.
And I've had someone say to me that like they usually go for romance or crime, and
Okay.
they enjoy Shadow Sword because it just,
Yeah.
I guess, has more of a grounded feel for it.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So what was the most rewarding point or one of the most rewarding points in the process of writing this or publishing this?
Mm.
You might have had a few, but you can share one or two with us.
Yeah. For writing, I can't say too specifically
No,
exactly what
because
it
then
is.
you're probably
But
gonna share, like, all the details of your
yeah,
favorite scene, which you can't do.
yeah. But I will say that, like, typically when I start writing a book, I have a couple scenes that are very clear or semi-clear in my head that I'm
Mhm.
very excited to get to.
Yes.
So for this one, it happens 3/4 of the way through, probably.
Okay.
But it was one of the first scenes I ever thought of for this book.
Mm.
And so the moment that I was actually finally able to write it and have all of the moments come together to, like, to hit, it just, that was one, like, my first favorite thing of just being able to write what I'd had in my head for so long.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, was incredible. Um, think of other big ones. I mean, seeing my cover for the first time
Ah, yeah.
was, I think, that one, even more so than actually getting to hold my book for the first time. Weirdly
Mhm.
enough, for me, it was seeing the cover. And I think we went through 5 or 6 different drafts probably
Okay.
to figure it out. And a lot of them were small tweaks. But when I got this version of it, I
Mhm.
what I ended up doing was I turned my laptop sideways. I enlarged the picture until it was about the size of a book, and I stood back and I started crying immediately. I was
Aw.
like, "This is my cover." And
That's
that was
amazing.
probably the first moment that I felt like, "Oh, I have a book."
Yeah.
Like, it felt like I wrote a book, of course, after I finished writing the first draft, like, "Oh, this is an entire thing."
Yeah.
But because this is my first published book, like, seeing the cover
Mhm.
was just a fantastic moment for me.
For sure. And
Yeah.
how long did it take to actually write, let's say, the first draft of the book,
I
approximately?
actually keep track of this because I'm always curious about it.
Okay.
But it took me about 6 months to do,
Okay. Yeah.
which I've done the first draft of the second one as well, and it took me about 6 months. So that seems to be my average.
Okay, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So you could pump out a book a year.
If
Maybe.
you take out all the editing things, then sure.
Yeah, it's true because that's it. A lot of people think, "Oh, I wrote a book, that's it." But no, there's a whole other work process of editing and rewriting
Yeah,
and getting
it's
readers to look at it and yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
No, it take once all that's factored in, it took me, or it takes me about year and a half to 2.5 years to actually do a book.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure. That
so
definitely tracks is very normal. So,
yeah.
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 That's right. Very cool. So are there any aspects, either character arcs or elements in Shadow Sword that are very personal to you that you couldn't wait to maybe see in writing because you're like, oh, there's just that
Mm.
tie to that.
There are, but I didn't realize that I was adding them until after I wrote the first draft.
Okay.
So for David, part of his anxiety is rooted in imposter syndrome,
Mm,
which when I was starting to write this, I was even newer to freelance editing than I am now.
okay.
So I was constantly feeling imposter syndrome, and I accidentally gave the poor man my imposter syndrome. Um, so
That's good.
yeah,
I've
and
never
I'm
heard
like,
that before.
but so that part ended up being personal, of, like, not to the same degree. He has it a lot worse than I do on a lot larger scale.
Yeah.
But being able to see someone in a position, not that I'm in a position of power, but, like, still, like, in a position of power, having that imposter syndrome is just kind of
Mm,
nice to work through, of, like, oh yeah, like, anyone, like, even though he came from my own head, like, anyone can have imposter syndrome, like, it just,
yes.
so that was part of it. um and then for Regan, and I've had a few writer friends tell me that, like, oh, like, this is the case for them as well with different things. um I accidentally again gave her an insecurity about her age,
Mm,
which, just so for her, it's, she was always treated as younger. She is sometimes just still perceived as younger. She's worried about being perceived as younger. Um, And I ended up like, that was years ago, kind of through no one's fault really, of like, I started feeling like I was being treated younger than I actually am.
Mhm.
I've always kind of had a face that like, you could probably age me down a little bit, Um, and so now, like, no one's done it to me for years. And it's still kind of ingrained in me of like, oh, people are going to think I'm too young to be doing this, or like I'm inexperienced or any of those things.
Mm,
So I ended up giving that to her, and I realized like I haven't seen this in a character that I've personally read.
yeah,
So that was kind of nice to be able to work through that, and still like continue to work through that with her character as I'm still writing it.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I think those ones, and for Regan, something that for some reason this was very important for me. I haven't seen it in another character, and I think I was nervous to actually put it out, even though it's such a small detail.
Okay.
Um, but a lot of times in books, when there are characters who are being patient with each other, it's
Mhm.
endless well of patience. There's never any frustration. There's never any, which I'm so happy is out in the world, and that people get to see that you are deserving of endless patience.
Yeah.
I get angry at people when they're hard on themselves because I love them so much and don't want them to be hard on themselves.
That's a good point.
So I ended up giving that to Regan because I'm like, oh, she would also react that way. Of
Mm,
it's We both have this protectiveness of, if you come at someone that we care about, we are going to get upset at you, and we're going to like get firm with you,
yeah.
even if the person you're attacking is yourself. Like,
Yes.
are bad. So so that was something that I wanted to give to her as well, which kind of comes out sometimes when she's talking to David, sometimes when she's talking to her sister Bryn. Like, she just wants them to love themselves like she loves them or cares
Mhm.
about them, and
Yeah, yeah,
you know,
yeah, for
so
sure. So I
yeah.
just see here we have a comment from Emma. Came in as you said romance. I'm clearly meant to be here. So let's kind of go into the romance part now.
Mhm.
We've covered the mythology, we've covered the characters. So the romance is funny. I've never seen the trope of ex childhood best friends before. So that was really unique. So yeah, how did you come like did you just kind of set out like this is going to be my trope, or again, the story just crafted it as it did?
I think it mostly just crafted it. I knew that I wanted them to have known each other when they were kids.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and then I think I just realized, like, oh, like if they still know each other now, he's gonna clock her so fast.
yeah.
And he can't clock her. It's like there has to be a reason why they have not seen each other in a long enough period that there's a chance he wouldn't recognize her.
Yes.
Because if it had been a year and she rolled up with a different accent, like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So I think it just ended up working out that I needed them to no longer know each other, but I wanted them to have that history.
Mhm.
Um, so that's how that ended up just coming out of like, I need them to not have seen each other for a while.
Yeah.
And it's funny you mentioned that like you haven't seen it before, because I hadn't either while I was writing, but now one of my good friends, H.E. Bauman, she has it in her series as well. Of like,
Oh,
like they hadn't seen each other for 8 years either.
uh-huh.
Very random overlaps with it. But yeah, besides the two of us, I don't tend to see.
No, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and like they, in this particular case, they literally were children the last time they saw each other.
That's right.
So it's been quite a while.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
What is, one of your favorite things about the romance between, David and Regan?
I think I have to try and approach it as, because I'm working on the second book, so I'm like, let's put that
Yes.
that stuff aside. Um, I think just how quickly they accept each other is one of the things, and like how easy they fall into talking to each other. And like obviously from her perspective, it's a damn, he's easy to talk to. I don't want this.
Yes.
But for him, it's just, this is really nice. Like she feels like a safe space. Like, so that's something that I like, of just the immediate connection of,
Mhm.
I can trust this person.
Yeah.
I also really love just he just has to look at her, and she just has to give him a look and he feels more confident.
Mm.
Like that's something that beyond just the safety of like, she's so confident that all I have to do is look at her and like channel her and I will feel more confident in this moment.
Yes, yeah.
So I love that they can do that for each other really to different extents.
Yes, for sure. And how does the new adult, because you said it's new adult, how does the new adult play into the romance?
Um, for the romance, it'll play in a little bit more in the sequel because there will be spice.
Okay.
On
But there's no spice currently, is
This
that,
is
or at
no
least I haven't come
situation.
across anything.
Yeah, no, this is one of the slowest burns I think that you could find for a first book.
Okay.
Um, but I think that the new adult was more. I didn't necessarily play it into the romance, other than what I could put on a page.
Yes.
It comes more into the themes, the ages of the characters, um, because the themes that are being dealt with this. I'm not saying teenagers can't
Yeah.
relate to it, but it's more of a like early 20s sort of existential crises that these people are facing.
Yes, for sure.
So that's I think more where the new adult comes into of it is more of an early 20s crisis than a 16-year-old crisis.
Yes.
And then so like that just ends up because they're at a slightly different point in their lives that ends up reflecting into the romance.
Yes.
Um, yeah, so it kind of feeds each other again with
Okay, cool.
that.
And what do you want readers to get away mostly from David and Regan's journey?
I mean, I feel like we've covered a lot of it of
Yeah.
the
Is there anything else that maybe we haven't covered, or like just some sort of token from each character that you're like, oh, I hope they get this from this.
Mm, I mean for David, I guess part of it is that like that anyone wherever they are in life, whatever their job is, can be in a place of vulnerability.
Yeah.
That was something that I really wanted to make sure for him was like, yes, he's a king. He has a lot of power. He should have a lot of confidence,
Hmm.
but he struggles a lot too. So that's, I think, for as far as David's story, like that's, I want people to see that and go like, that's okay that you have that struggle and to um, don't be, oh, the thought fled. Um, yeah, to just kind of um to there it is to see your vulnerabilities as a strength, and I think that fits for both of them really,
Mm.
because Regan's so worried about perceptions and what people will think of her, and just so your vulnerability and who you are, just to lean into both, and to accept both, and that the right people will accept both about you. um, so yeah.
Those are lovely words. I think that's great that readers can take that away from both of your characters. Yeah. You mentioned, I know you said that you weren't in a position of power, but it's interesting. We as writers do have power because
Yes.
words power, right?
Yeah.
So, what is what words of power or wisdom advice can you give to someone who maybe wants to write a book, and you do have some experience. You've written
Mhm.
this book, you've put it out, you published it. Like, that is quite a boatload of experience already for to another person who hasn't any
Mhm.
experience. So you
Mhm.
did give the streamline of consciousness for the characters. If you can't figure out your character, do that. That's great. Do you have any other advice that you'd like to give anybody else?
Um, I think a big one, and this was something I think that I had to figure out for myself, both as far as writing and as editing goes,
Mm.
is other people's advice is suggestion. So
Yes.
there are a lot of people out there who will say you have to write this amount. You won't write a good book unless you do this. This has to be the way you do it.
Mm.
That's not the case.
Yeah, yeah.
There are some things that maybe the advice is a stronger piece that you should consider following. But if it
Mhm.
doesn't work for you, then it doesn't work for you. So I think it's if you want to write a book, figure out how you can write the book, not how other people are telling you you should write the book.
Yes.
And then you get it down, and then other people like the beta readers, editors, whoever will help you figure out how to like fine tune it. but you have to figure out how you can write it in a way that feels authentic and doable for you.
Mhm.
So,
Very good. And you mentioned that you're writing your sequel.
I am.
That's exciting. How far are you in the sequel?
Um, so I've written the first draft.
Yeah.
I'm almost done my read through of it.
Okay.
And I'm gonna dive into alpha feedback soon. So I've had a few
Mm,
people read it and give me feedback. So I will start going through what they say soon and putting that through some adjustments based on what they say. And
yeah.
yeah,
Fun.
so it's
What can
coming.
you tell us about the sequel? Can you get
Um, Potentially more emotional damage. That's what I
okay.
can say about the sequel.
Yeah.
Basically, I was this was initially going to be a duology, and then I realized Regan needs to be put through it more for her to come out the other side. So emotional damage for both of them in the sequel.
Okay. Wow. And then there's gonna be more books? Are you
Maybe
saying
a third. Yes, it's going to be a trilogy.
that? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. So we have lots to look forward to then.
Yeah.
That's great. And okay, so I won't ask what the emotional damage is because that's probably going to be what the book is.
Yes.
Where can people find you, follow you? Like, what are you most active on?
I'm most active on Instagram,
Yeah.
which is Kaila Desjardins Books.
Hmm.
I have a website, kailadesjardinsbooks.com. Uh, those are pretty. I have a newsletter that you can sign up
Wonderful.
through my Instagram and my website.
Yeah.
And if you sign up, you can get a link to Shadow Sword's playlist. So if you're a
Oh,
music person, then can go listen to the vibes.
nice.
Yeah, that's where you can find me.
Okay, well, I'll be putting those links down in the description below of the video that I upload of this interview. And yeah, so that's where they can find you good. And you have your book with you. Wait, did you show it at the beginning? I can't remember now.
No, I just showed it to
Right. We need to show the book
you.
because it is a gorgeous cover. Like
Thank
it's
you.
you look at the cover and it just pops Celtic as well, even without the whole, Celtic symbols. I guess
Mhm.
maybe it's just the colors.
I think and all the green and the yeah.
Yeah, the green and the red. Now I'm trying to figure out, is that like a foxtail or it is?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
which ties into his nickname for her.
Oh,
So,
I
yeah.
could see that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
And then a little Easter egg on the back, this ties into her nickname for him.
Oh, okay,
So,
it's a
little
feather.
little falcon feather.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
fun. I love that.
yeah.
That's great. Well, I'm so happy that we actually, well, little story about us, we bumped into my book signing at Indigo. Was it Indigo Canada? I think
It was
it
Barhaven.
Barhaven. There you
Yeah.
go. So we bumped into each other and followed each other, and now I'm so eager and happy and excited to prop you up on your journey and
Thank
get
you.
you more readers and eyes on
Yeah,
your book. It's exciting.
thank you, yeah.
So thanks for coming in today. It was really great. Thank you for all who attended and for all who will see this video. And it was just lovely to get to know you more, Kaila, and your
Thank
book.
you.
And again, thank you, everyone. We're going to say
Thank you.
bye. Bye.
Bye.